I arrived at the office 40 minutes early on the day of the quarterly leadership meeting. Not because I was presenting. I wasn't presenting. My manager Dale was presenting. He had taken my proposal document the previous Thursday, told me he would review it over the weekend and tighten it up before the Monday meeting, and that was the last I heard about it. I arrived early because I had learned, after 2.5 years at this company, that things tend to surface in the spaces before meetings start. I was right. I had spent 4 months on that strategy. The project was a market expansion analysis, a framework for how the company could enter 3 new regional markets over an 18-month window. Not a memo, not a slide deck, a full proposal. 41 pages of competitive data, internal resource mapping, a regional rollout model I had built from scratch using demographic and revenue data that took 6 weeks alone to compile. I had worked evenings on it. I had brought in perspectives from 3 other departments, product, finance, ops, so that the recommendation wasn't just strategic, but operationally grounded. I had run every section past our compliance officer before submitting it. I was proud of it. I sent it to Dale with a cover note at 9 a.m. on a Thursday, and I carbon copied Sandra Mercer on the thread. Sandra was the CEO. I had copied her not as a power move. She was already on several threads related to this initiative. Copying her was routine. I did not think much about it at the time. The quarterly meeting began at 10. There were 11 people in that room. Sandra Mercer at the head of the table. The VP of Operations, the CFO, the heads of product and engineering, regional leads from 2 divisions. Dale sat to Sandra's left with his laptop open and my proposal on the screen. He clicked through the slides. He explained the competitive analysis. He walked through the regional rollout model. He outlined the 18-month entry framework. He described the methodology. He did not say my name once. Not in the introduction, not in the acknowledgement section I had included on slide 3, which he appeared to have deleted. Not at any point in a 40-minute presentation that was built entirely from work I had produced. I sat in the back of the room, 2 rows behind him, and I said nothing. I had known this was a possibility. I had prepared. What Dale did not know was what Sandra already knew. She had received my original email 3 weeks earlier. The thread where I was CC'd, the one where I had attached the full 41-page proposal with my name in the document header, my initials on every section footer, my cover note at the top explaining the structure and methodology. Sandra had read it. I knew this because 2 weeks before the meeting, she had replied to the thread with a single line, "Thorough work, looking forward to the presentation." She had not replied to Dale, she had replied to me. I had that email saved. Dale finished presenting. He folded his hands on the table and looked around the room with the relaxed posture of someone who has just delivered something impressive and knows it. Sandra looked at him for a moment. Then she said, "Dale, before we move to questions, can you walk us through the methodology you used to build the regional rollout model? The demographic weighting structure specifically." Dale nodded. He opened his mouth. And then nothing coherent came out. He said right, and so, and the approach we took several times. He clicked back to the slide with the model. He described it in general terms, surface level, the kind of language you use when you have read something once but did not build it. He could not explain the weighting structure because he had not designed it. He had not asked me how it worked. He had not read the methodology appendix on pages 28 through 31. Sandra waited. The room was very quiet. When Dale finished his incomplete explanation, Sandra set down her pen. "I'd like to hear directly from the person who developed this model," she said. "I believe her name is Cassandra." Every head in that room turned. I was sitting in the back row with a cup of coffee and a notepad. I said, "Yes, that's me." I walked to the front of the room. Sandra gestured to the presentation screen. "Walk us through it, your methodology, the actual structure." I pulled up the slide. I explained the demographic weighting model in detail, how I had segmented the regional data, why I had weighted certain markets higher based on infrastructure readiness rather than pure population density, how the 18-month entry sequence was designed to front-load the two markets with the lowest regulatory friction so the company could generate early revenue before entering the more complex region. I spoke for 12 minutes. When I finished, Sandra nodded once. "That's what I thought," she said. She did not look at Dale. She looked at the VP of Operations and said, "Let's schedule a follow-up with Cassandra's team to begin scoping the Phase 1 entry." My team, not Dale's team. Dale was reassigned within 3 weeks, not fired. Reassigned, moved to a lateral role with a different manager and a significantly reduced scope. The official language was structural reorganization. The people in that room knew what it meant. I was promoted to strategy director 8 months later. The first thing I did was set up a protocol for my team. Every proposal, every analysis, every deck that goes to leadership, it goes with the names of the people who built it on the cover page. Not mine, theirs, whoever did the work. Because I know what it costs when that doesn't happen. I had spent 4 months on that strategy. I had earned the right to walk to the front of that room. I had earned the right to explain exactly how I built it in front of every senior leader in the company, with the CEO asking the questions. What Dale had not counted on was that Sandra reads her email. And what he had not counted on, what nobody who takes credit for someone else's work ever really counts on, is that the person they took it from was also in the room, paying attention, prepared. If you are ever in a situation where someone is misrepresenting your work in a professional setting, document everything before it happens. Timestamps on emails, document headers with your name, version history, track changes, CC the right people when the work is submitted, not aggressively, not as a trap, just as a record. Because a record is not something you can argue with. Sandra did not need me to say a single word to expose what had happened. She had already read the proposal. She already knew whose thinking was on those slides. All she needed was to ask one question that only the person who built it could answer, and Dale answered it.